Good evening, members. Welcome everyone to Strategy and Resources, today on the 13th of November 2025. Just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. So there's no fire alarm scheduled for this evening, so if it does go off, please make your way out of the building. Please make sure your phones are switched off or on silent. Welcome, obviously, to use devices to access the ModGov app for the papers for the meeting. This evening, we have a technical issue with the cameras, so apologies to anyone who is watching at home. We should still have good audio feed, but people won't be able to see you tonight. But anything said in the chamber will obviously be recorded for live or subsequent audio feed. Except where we have confidential items which we don't have this evening or don't intend to have. So if you've got something to say, if you could raise your hand and speak through me, that would be great. Try to face the microphone and do say which paper or bullet point you're referring to so that we're all able to look at it. So that's that. We have had apologies from Councillor Robert Brown and Councillor Caton Hughes. Are we missing anybody else? No, don't think so. No, great. Okay. Yeah, right. Yes. Linda said apologies. Linda has. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So missing Councillor Linda Cohen. So item 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest in the agenda tonight? No. Okay, thank you. Move on to item 3. Is it agreed that I can sign the minutes of our last meeting, 2nd of October? Getting some nods around the chamber. Thank you very much. So I'll sign those after this. We don't have any public questions tonight, and we haven't got any member questions either. So we're going to move straight on to item 6, annual procurement and contract management update. I'd like to introduce Sarah Turner, who's our Senior Procurement and Commissioning Officer, to present this report. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. The report summarises the work that we've carried out over the past year, and it covers, I'm going to go through these in order and explain a little bit about each of them. Firstly, the Procurement Act implementation that took place in February this year, and I've included some information at Appendix 1 that details our procurement plan forms for quarters 1 and 2. We advised officers where they could to, if appropriate, delay the start of their procurement so we could ensure that any issues with the new Procurement Act, any of the systems, was actually ironed out before we started. And you can see from the data at Appendix 1 that we had 4 procurement plan forms in the first quarter, and I think it was 11 or 12 in the second. Secondly, we've updated the social value policy, which was approved at Council in July, and the new social value measures that were approved by this committee at your last meeting. And just to say that the social value elements and the new Procurement Act, the new policy and the new measures relate closely and are closely aligned to the community wealth building pillar of procurement as well. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that later. Thirdly, we've created what we've called a procurement tracker. This is a new system where we record all details of any procurement that's valued over £30,000 from the authorised procurement plan form, which is an internal process to approve the start of a procurement exercise and that there is budget available, up to the contract award and contract management. The tracker has been created as an operational tool to monitor the compliance with our procedure rules and requirements of the Procurement Act, which is mainly a lot of new notices that we have to publish. Any non-compliance is initially taken up with service areas, and any continued non-compliance is taken to our corporate governance group. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is our spend analysis that we undertake every year. This is detailed in paragraph 2.26. It shows the expenditure with suppliers for 24-25 with information obtained from Unit 4, our financial management system. I need to point out that in paragraph 2.28, some of the figures are wrong in terms of the years. It should be 23-24, 24-25, not 22-23. So I do apologise for that and any confusion caused. We have agreed as a council that a local supplier is one with a GL postcode, and so there is details within that table that show the amount of expenditure with GL postcoded suppliers and suppliers that are from elsewhere. A bit disappointing, our figure for local expenditure this year has gone down. This is due in part to some of our capital programme timing. It's also due to the fact that some of our services have been brought back in-house, so instead of paying third-party suppliers, we're paying for it internally. I was also asked at one of the briefings if we could split in future the capital and revenue expenditure as part of this analysis. I haven't been able to do it and get the figures for you tonight, but going forward we will actually make sure that that is split out in the spend analysis. And in the meantime, if we get that information from last year's spend analysis, I'll share that with you. Finally, I'd like to say that paragraph 3 sets out in detail the work that we'll be carrying on over the next year. There's quite a lot we've got to get on and do, so it's set out in quite a lot of detail. Thank you, that's all I wanted to say on the matter, and I'll take any questions if you've got any.
Brilliant, thank you, Sarah. Questions from members? Gary.
Thank you for that report, Sarah. On page 20, you talk about the spend in GL postcodes and non-GL postcodes. Do we know how much of that relates to the new build programme? Because I suspect that might be what's changed the balance a bit.
Not off the top of my head. I can find out and let you know. We get a 10,000 line data dump of information, so we need to set some pivot tables up, so we can do that and sort that out for you and let you know.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the benefit of the audio feed, that was Councillor Gary Luff. I'll try to remember to say councillors' full names as we go forward, but do pick me up and you say it if I don't. So I've got Councillor Bob Hughes next.
Thank you. On page 18, first of all, I just want to say well done for providing the supplier social value measurement tool. I've been on the other end of this, trying to put bids together where I'm trying to put some social value in, and I've no idea what the council's looking for. I mean, not this council, other ones. So it's a great idea that that's in there. My question about the social value measurement tool is, what information will we be able to see about the benefit of having done this? I mean, I'm assuming that you can measure that social value in some way. Will we get regular reports back on what's working?
You will get an annual report on social value. If you want it more frequently than that, we can possibly have that discussion. What we have agreed is that the measurement tool at the moment is for the purposes of tender evaluation. The next part of the project that I'm working on is to develop financial proxy values for those measures. The example I can give is if, as part of a contract that we've let, there are 2 people that are paid the living wage over a period of 18 weeks, that has a financial value. So that will be the financial value that is going to be reported to you. And part of the reason for changing from our previous methodology is that we will actually have something tangible to say that this is what has been paid in terms of social value, whereas before I could say against the themes, outcomes and measures what had been allocated to those and committed to those, but I couldn't say physically what that meant out in the district, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So, but will that be a sort of a before and after thing? Will you have a baseline that says we're expecting this and the outcome is this, or is that beyond the scope of the tool?
Not at the moment. We can probably do it year on year. We know what was committed through the social value portal, so that contract ended at the end of September, so we know where we are up until then. This is all now new, so you will get the information based on the new data.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes, Councillor Terry Cook.
Thanks, Sarah. That's really good. Can I just probe a little bit on 2.28 and 2.29, which are the figures of the spend analysis from last year. Yep, you with me? It's disappointing to see that the percentage figures went down, but also the actual amount of money was quite significantly down that's been passed over. Now, I know we said in the report and that it was to do with the timing of some of the large capital projects, and that it's also got to do with bringing some stuff bringing stuff inside. Can you give us some more information of what that means and what kind of impact those things are likely to have on those figures? What I'm trying to get to do is some kind of understanding as to, is this likely to happen again next year? And do we need to take any steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again next year?
The answer to that is, can I go away and have a look at the figures and where it's been reduced and why it's been reduced and get back to you? I could waffle through an answer now, but I don't think that's going to help you. I'd like to go away and have a more detailed look at it, if that's okay.
Yeah, Forrest was fun with that. If you get that to me, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yes, Councillor Gary Luff.
Just a very quick question. Where we say that the year, is that the year that we actually pay the invoice, or when we start the contract that we're going to pay for?
The data of the spend analysis is the year in which that invoice was paid.
Thanks, Gary. And Councillor Martin Piercy.
Thank you, Chair. Just moving on to compliance with the new procurement requirements. There's lots of information, and thank you, Sarah, for that. And I note that there is a review referred to in paragraphs 3.4. In summary, do you think that the council is in a good position in terms of compliance, or we have more to do? Sort of a summary position, if you may. Thank you.
I am going to say that I think we're in a relatively good position in terms of compliance. Those of you who've been here a while know that I've been working on procurement for a very long time. From your time at Ordnance Standards, you know the work we did to ensure that we were making sure the procedures and guidance and training were in place for officers. So my point of view is that I do think we're in a relatively good position.
Thank you. Yeah, I do have some knowledge, and it's not easy. They are very complicated, and for the move to be more transparent, it's quite onerous, the new requirements. So that's pleasing to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Gary Luff.
Sorry, this sounds like a stream of consciousness. I'm just coming up with these questions. Going back to Councillor Cook's query about the spend, in 23-24, did we pay for the heat pumps at Stratford Leisure Centre and Dursley, and that Cotswold Energy, I'm guessing, are a GL postcode, am I right? Might that explain it?
Yes, it is, to answer your question, yes.
Thank you. I think that might be it. I was just going to say, similar point to Terry's actually, that I think it's enormously positive that we've put £35 million into the local economy over the last couple of years, 400 plus suppliers, most of whom, based on the economy locally, will be SMEs. But I am interested to dig into that a little bit more, and if there are opportunities. I mean, where we've brought stuff in-house, that's fantastic, because we're, using our staff to do stuff, and that's still contributing. But yeah, if there are any ways that we can boost our local spends, then that would be really welcome. But I'm sure you're doing that through your work anyway. I've got more questions now, so I'll start with Councillor Lindsay Green.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, the point you were saying about with things coming in-house, is there a way of obviously measuring that? Because obviously, like you said, Chloe, that does still have an effect on the local economy because we're paying people locally. So is there a way that, although it sounds like it's not going to be included, can we have some kind of metric to say, actually, it does contribute X amount as well, so it doesn't look or sound as bad that it's decreasing?
Absolutely. I can look at the services that were bought in-house and what those actually cost in terms of running those services in-house against what would have been external expenditure, yes.
Councillor Terry Cook.
Can I just clarify coming after Gary, because I'm always clarifying what Gary's saying. Are we saying then that the reason that we've gone down this year is because we had an extraordinary high year the year before?
Yes, more than likely.
If we could just confirm that, that would be great.
I will clarify.
Councillor Katie Hoffman.
It's not a question for Sarah really, but it's a general question whether we could request when officers are answering the queries, it'd be helpful if we were all copied in so that we've got that information. That would be really helpful.
Absolutely. I think that's fairly standard. I'm sure Sarah was planning to copy everyone in. Yes. And if we wanted at a later date to have a session to talk about this, because it feels like there's quite a bit of interest in the room, then we could certainly do that. But yeah, okay. Looks like that was it for questions for now. So I'll read out the decision. The committee resolves to note A, the progress made on the implementation of the Procurement Act, B, the progress made on the procurement aims from the procurement strategy, and C, the next steps for procurement and contract management across the authority. Anyone like to propose? Catherine, thank you. Councillor Catherine Braun. And seconder? Anyone? Councillor Katie Hoffman, thank you very much. Katie, would you like to say anything? No? Okay. So later.
I'll just say thank you very much, Sarah, for all the excellent work, and it's really good to see the value that's being put back into Stroud District, so thank you.
Thank you. And so we move into debate. Would anyone like to make a comment? No? Okay, so I'll come back to Catherine. Would you like to comment?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. So yeah, just to say I'm really pleased to see this report, and thank you for all the detail, Sarah, that you've provided. I think it really helps to evidence the work that has been undertaken, both in terms of social value and the Procurement Act work, which I know has been significant. I think we're all interested in terms of the local spend, and I note that 2.29 within the report, it does reference there are specific projects such as the multi-service contract vehicles that we're only going to buy once every 10 years that might come round, and obviously the huge expense that we've had with the air source heat pumps at the Pulse and Stratford Park Leisure Centre and the museum in the park, which was secured with match funding as well. So this is going to vary from year to year, but having additional information I think will help us all to understand, and it'd be great to share this as well with partners so they can see how we can all work together to increase the local spend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll move to the vote then. So if we could have, please raise your hand if you are in favour. Stevie, you against? All right. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And we will move on to item 7, which is a related item on community wealth building. And I'm going to hand back to Sarah Turner, Senior Procurement and Commissioning Officer, who's going to present this report on behalf of Keith Gerard, Strategic Director of Communities. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. The report sets out the background to and the progress that we've made on the community wealth building project. As requested at Appendix A, we've included a more detailed definition of community wealth building for your information. Paragraph 2 of the report and Appendix B provides details of the Community Wealth Building Action Plan, which builds on the recommendations of the CLES report. The action plan is still in development and is a live draft linking through to the council plan. Paragraph 3 has identified the work that we are undertaking across the authority at the moment that reflect the principles of community wealth building. Finally, the report includes details of the workshop taking place in November with the support of CLES to review progress and explore how we can continue to build and strengthen our community wealth building approach. Invitees to this workshop include previous attendees from external organisation, group leaders, SLT and the Internal Officer Working Group. I'm happy to take questions, but where I'm unable to answer them, I will refer them to Keith and forward any responses to you all accordingly. Obviously, the procurement pillar I can talk about in a bit more detail, but the others I might have to refer. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Questions? Yeah, Councillor Martin Brown.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again, Sarah, for this and the previous report. Just looking at the action plan on page 35, there's an objective to support community ownership of housing, transport and energy. And then the one action listed there is supporting community energy schemes. Great. I just wondered whether anything could be there also about community housing, or transport. I was thinking, I don't know whether this really fits into wealth building, but I was thinking of car share schemes, for example.
Absolutely. I'm happy to take that back to Keith and to the workshop in November, which the idea is there anything we need to additionally include? So I will take that forward.
Councillor Bob Hughes.
I'm afraid I've got 4 questions, so I'll do them one at a time, just to be fair. On page 29, the first pillar of ownership, we talk about providing support to the Stroud Area Community Energy Network. I'm curious to know what that support looks like, and might it be extended in future to a better use of council buildings to be leasing out for the Community Energy Network to provide facilities there? Seems to be something we're not doing in-house because we haven't got the time and resources to do it, but we're not willing to let that space out to somewhere like this organisation.
Again, I will take that forward. Yes, thank you, Chloe.
So I can provide some background, but you'd probably like a fuller response in writing from officers. But myself and subsequently Martin have been supporting that organisation from a member point of view. They have a once-a-month meeting, but from an officer point of view, they've been supported both by planning officers and also by Georgia Spooner as our climate engagement officer. So they've had really good support. We ran a big workshop in the chamber here. And lots of other different ways in which we've done stuff. I believe as part of the abundance and solar canopy scheme that we're starting to look at, there may well be an element of community ownership within that, and that, you know, that's partly the thinking behind using abundance. So lots of ways that we're exploring it, but we'll get you a full answer from officers. Thanks.
Thank you. My second question is on the third item. Market Towns Vitality Fund. Brilliant that money's been around. I wonder if we have got any assessment of the actual impact of that, whether spending that 150,000 has done what it was intended to do. I've seen some of the ways that money has been spent. I'm not entirely sure what the long-term benefit would be of those, but.
So I'm going to hand over to James Brain, our Strategic Director of Place, to answer that one.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as part of the Regeneration Investment Board, not the one today, but the previous one, an action was taken to report back in April next year on the impact that the Market Town Vitality Fund has had. So there's been essentially 2 rounds of it. We had last year and then this year. So yes, we fully intend to report back on that.
That's embarrassing because I was at that meeting. I do apologise. Clearly forgot. I may even have asked for it, who knows. I'll go on to my third point, which is on the next page under employment and the increasing fair work and developing local labour markets. I'm wondering if this also might be an opportunity for us to increase any of the apprenticeships that we take on as a district. Is this a place that we could press for that, and what are we doing?
I'm going to hand over to our Chief Executive, Cathy O'Leary, to answer that one.
Thank you very much. Some members might be aware that we've reappraised our apprenticeship scheme just recently. So what we've done is we've looked at the amounts that we're paying apprentices. We've worked out that when we benchmark that against other Gloucestershire apprenticeships, we've been slightly overpaying. So we have levelled that, and we have broadened the number of apprenticeships that we're able to offer. So we are indeed expanding that scheme. It will be more people that we'll be able to take on. We're not disadvantaging any apprentices that we've already got, but it's fair to say that new apprentices joining us will be paid a commensurate rate with the national rate and local rates as well. I don't think we'd appreciated just quite how much out of step we were, and it has created a bit of a problem for us with throughput of apprentices, because when they come to get full-time jobs with us, if they're on a really decent apprenticeship wage, then when they reach the next step, they don't feel the difference in their pockets, so it kind of disadvantages them later on. So that's our thinking, but also to say that we use quite a lot of the apprenticeship levy to help people who are at different stages in their career to get other qualifications. So we've got a number of people benefiting from that at managerial level in the organisation. So we do look at that in the round, but by and large, you'll be aware we've got a very healthy cohort of young apprentices with us, and they do very well, and most of them end up staying with us if they're half decent. So lots of those, and it's a great way of taking people into the organisation. But thank you for the question.
Thank you. I've got my last one now. It's a quick one. Page 35. Most of the comments, risks and issues are about dependency on having a senior economic development officer. And I'm wondering what we're doing about that and whether the money is going to be in the budget next year for that post, which I believe was time limited. So what do we do to make sure that carries on?
I'll hand back to James Brain, if I may.
Yes, so I'm putting in place hopefully some interim arrangements where I can give honorarium to a couple of staff that are doing exceptional work to give them an opportunity to step into that post, and that hopefully will start on the 1st of December and will run through to the end of March next year. I have put a budget request in to secure additional resources because the posts, the economic development posts, are fixed-term posts, and it was going to be difficult when the incumbent had sort of left earlier this year, in the middle of the summer, to try and secure somebody. So the request is for a 2-year fixed term, but that has to be considered as part of the wider priority setting work and the budget setting process that will be happening early next year.
Thank you. I mean, that seems key to actually generating more income anyway. It's probably paid for itself quite quickly. So I shall be supporting that. Thank you.
Great. Next, I've got Councillor Steve Robinson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I don't know, thank you, Sarah, whether this is more answerable by Lucy or not, but under on the action plan, page 38, it mentions about the Stroud funding platform now live, which, yeah, we know that that's live from round one. What I'm just interested to know is, am I right? Somebody put me in the right direction. Have we've finished round 3 of that, and is that the end of crowdfunding, or is there another crowdfunding coming in the next year?
So my understanding was that we were keeping going, but I don't know for sure. Has anyone else got? No, I think we might have to come back to you on that. But okay. Certainly I was under the impression that it was a rolling programme.
And Chair, would there be a chance of having a review and to actually see how well, we took on a company yes. to do it, how well it's, in the first 3 phases, it's gone, really.
So let me ask Councillor Martin Brown, is there a sort of a feedback review coming to your committee?
I think so, but I don't have the forward plan in front of me.
Handing over to Cathy O'Leary.
I think the answer is yes, and in terms of budget, I think that's going to be part of the budget requests in the round, because you're right, we've had a couple of very successful rounds of crowdfunding for locally important activities, and we've been delighted to support that. And I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised about the difference it has made to our communities. So I do know that there is a plan to bring that to committee so that we can see that. But that will be part of our budget considerations in the round, because clearly we're not going to be able to fund everything, but it is something that I think is particularly beneficial for our communities and for the activity it generates and just simply getting people to do things for themselves a bit. So it's been really valuable.
Chair, it'd be a good news story, yeah, just how many communities have benefited. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Catherine Braun.
Thank you. Thank you for the paper. Really welcome all the work that's been going on, and I'm interested in the next steps. I wondered what will happen with the outputs of the workshop that's due to happen at the end of November, whether they would come back to us as this committee or to members, and whether there are plans to continue the Officer Working Group beyond the term of the project work that's been delivered to date, and if we could have an annual report on community wealth building as we do on the procurement side as well. Thank you.
The results, the outcomes of the workshop will be fed into the action plan, and yes, we will regularly report back to this committee, probably on an annual basis, on what we're doing. In terms of the development of the action plan, it will be ongoing. We've already discussed that we need to include target dates and completion dates for all of those actions. So we know when we're going to be achieving things, and those will align to the council plan as well. So yes, we will report back.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Well, thank you, Sarah, for answering all the questions tonight, but also really helpfully incorporating questions and comments that members had in the run-up to this meeting in your report. I'm going to move to the decision now. The committee resolves to note the progress on the community wealth building project. Do we have a proposer? I'm happy to propose. Seconder? Anyone fancy seconding? No, don't all jump at once. Councillor Martin Piercy. Martin, would you like to say anything?
Only to say that there's a raft of things that we're actually engaged with in terms of supporting economic development in the area, which is really encouraging. And so we're taking a very proactive approach as a council, and I think we would hope to continue that as we go through into next year. We've got officers that are doing a great job on this, and I've got some information I can give to Bob in terms of the community energy, which are doing all sorts of projects engaged with. I've just had a quick look now on the spreadsheet. There's about 20 different projects that they are engaging in trying to support in terms of community initiatives right across the district. So, they're doing a great job there. So I think it is, money well worth spending. It's not a huge amount of money, but what we get in terms of the engagement and trying to sow the seeds for communities to adopt more sustainable energy options, solar or whatever it might be, is fantastic. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, I would also just like to really celebrate this work. I think it's really positive. Lots of different ways that we're seeking to stimulate and empower the local economy, and that is, a core plank of our council plan. So I am going to suggest we move to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're in favour. And that's everybody. Thank you very much. Great. Okay, thank you, Sarah. We'll move on then to item 8, which is Brimscombe Port redevelopment next steps. And I'd like to introduce Alison Fisk, our Head of Property Services, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So, as members know, Brimscombe Port is an important part of the Council's regeneration programme, the Canal Project and Council Plan, and it's allocated for 150 homes in both the adopted and draft local plans. Significant progress has been made and significant investment put in to de-risk the site, including securing planning permission for the key infrastructure, acquiring land and property, and demolishing existing buildings. However, following the withdrawal of the previously appointed developer, the Council now needs to determine the next steps to bring forward this important project. To inform these next steps, a soft market testing exercise was undertaken on the Council's behalf by commercial agents, with over 100 developers, housing associations and investment funds contacted. While many parties declined due to market uncertainty and the complexity of the scheme, the Council received 10 detailed responses. All bar one of those have strong track records in delivering complex mixed-use regeneration projects. These responses demonstrated interest in the opportunity and also highlighted experience of the developers of the canal side and brownfield developments, and confirmed that the proposed delivery structure and procurement approach the Council was proposing are familiar and acceptable to potential partners. This report sets out recommendations for re-procuring a developer partner, outlines the proposed procurement approach, governance arrangements for the project and budget requirements, and considers opportunities for meanwhile uses on the site. It also addresses the continuation of grant funding for Stroud Valleys Canal Company and highlights the importance of ongoing community engagement as the project progresses. It's therefore recommended that the committee approves the necessary decisions so that the next steps to move the project forward can be taken as quickly as possible to capitalise on developer interest in the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Questions from members? No? Oh, yeah. Councillor Terry Cook.
My apologies. I did send a copy of a question to Keith, did you receive it, or you have? So, do you want me to read that out, or would you be happy to respond to it? It's just a question of, in terms of the ongoing cost that we have to produce from the port and the income from that, just to find out how secure that is in terms of what the current let rate is and what the term of the contracts are for the tenants in place.
Yes, so there's effectively 10 office suites in the Port Mill. At the moment, 9 of those are let and occupied. We've just had one tenant move out recently. The lease terms are really varied. So we've got 5 years, 10 years, 4 years, and obviously they've all started at different times. Some of those leases have break clauses. We've currently got tenants who are assigning leases. So they want to move out, they're still in the lease term and they need to find a tenant, and they've been successful in doing that. So that gives confidence, I suppose, to us that when we've got vacant units that the mill is still attractive, and we have invested quite a lot of money in refurbishing the mill, which is why it was fully let up until recently. So there's always churn, and there's always some, we get vacant periods, and it's difficult to say. I think some of those leases will come to an end next year, but they may well be renewed. They might not. So, but I think, and Lucy might want to comment, but in terms of the income we've had over previous years, there's a surplus that does come in to support the redevelopment.
I can do, and that would absolutely just to support what Ali said, that I am comfortable with the assumptions being made in this case.
So clearly we've been making money from this, from the tenants in the mill. What has that been used for in the past, and what are we missing out on by applying this to this particular phase?
So all of the surplus, so it's Lucy Clothier, Section 151 officer. All of the surplus income from the site has gone into the redevelopment. It was part of the agreement with Homes England that would happen.
Thank you. I've got, sorry, I saw both of you. Councillor Catherine Braun, and then I'll come to you, Katie.
Thank you. I wondered, Alison, if you could say something about the timeline, potentially, in terms of when we could look, if things go according to plan, following the proposals that are set out within the paper, to secure a new developer partner and then get started again on the timeline for the development progressing. Thank you.
Yes, so I caveat this that they're obviously very broad estimates, but we need to appoint consultants to take us through the procurement exercise. So we'd hope to have those in place by January in the new year, and then to start the procurement. I would hope by March probably start that. We've got to decide the structure of that procurement with their advice, and then obviously pull that together and start that exercise. The last time when we used competitive dialogue, it did take 9 months. We are hoping not to take that long and to shorten that. But I would think if we say 6 months for that procurement, and then being in a position to appoint someone, we'd be coming back to committee probably in about a year's time, I would think. And then we would be pressing to get the development agreement signed within 6 months as a maximum. So sort of 18 months-ish from here, we could have a signed up development agreement. But members will know, that all sorts of things happen on that journey. So yes, that's a rough outline of where we might be, and then the developer would be looking to design the scheme and submit planning application for it.
Thank you. There was mention in the report about interest from potential developers in the competitive tender process, but a short form process. So would that be about half the time, or do you think you'd just be able to shave off a few months?
There's no detail in the answers that we've had. but obviously I think, as we say, 9 months was a long time and we want to shorten that. I think that's where we need to discuss with our, our procurement experts and see how far we can shorten it without getting the best outcome, because ultimately that's what we want, is the best outcome for the council and to deliver the site.
Councillor Katie Hoffman next.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, Sally. Related to the development agreement, taking sort of in the region of 18 months, obviously with LGR coming, I think Councillor Braun has sort of just raised the question there about shortening it. Is that likely to be possible? And I'm thinking it would presumably be best if that was signed before we go into LGR.
So that 18 months that I'm estimating is the whole procurement exercise as well, and then getting into the legals. So that would be 18 months would take us to May 27. But as I say, that is just an estimate. In previous when we were working previously and reporting to committee, we did set out milestones, but they do shift. So because it's not all within our control, but if we can shorten it, then absolutely, because we obviously and the local community wants us to get on with it.
Yeah. Sorry, I've had a long day today. So my second question was around the community engagement, and I know there's been a lot in the past. Has there been any during this soft market testing phase?
We've got an email list, effectively, of all the people in the local community who've signed up for updates on the port development. So they've all been notified of any reports that come to this committee, and also this one. So we have done that, and keep the parish and SVC and the key stakeholders up to date as well. But until we get further on, there isn't really anything to get really into consultation engagement with the local community with, but also we want the project board to be looking at that as well, and getting input from those community representatives on the best way to do that.
I just wonder whether, Cathy, you might be able to say a few words about large capital projects as we go towards LGR and, the thinking between the councils.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask that question. The sad reality of life is that when we get to a structural change order, this is the order that the government makes when they've decided what they want local government reorganisation in Gloucestershire to look like. And they tell us how that's going to look, and they tell us what the transition arrangements are. At that point, they'll invoke something called a Section 24 notice, which means that any large capital projects will need to be decided by effectively the transition body. So that depends, who that is, depends almost entirely on what model of local government you're looking at. So it will be an implementation board if it's a single unitary, and it will be a joint committee if it's more than one unitary. If we look at what's happened in Surrey, we kind of know that. So actually, it's a question of how we're going to move those sorts of projects forward. It's fair to say that we're just working on implementation work streams. There are about 12. One of those which is relatively new because it wasn't important to get the proposals across the line, but it is important going forward, is a property services work stream, and that is going to look at all of the capital projects that the different councils have got. It's going to look at all of the assets that we've got, and it's going to work out how to prioritise the work around those. So that, if you like, will be the information that the new councils will need to start making decisions about which projects they're going to continue, which assets are more of a liability and they need to dispose of, and which assets they need to look at more carefully, for example, to find a more sustainable future for them. So there's a huge piece of work to be done. Our team will be heavily involved in that, and of course, the further we are with some of the projects that we've got, the better it will be, because that information will be able to be presented to the new council or councils. Well, it'll just be one for Stroud, won't it? But the new council with some degree of confidence about what that's looking at. So it's in our interests to progress these projects as far as we can, but it will probably be part of our discussions when we look at our council plan and the priorities that we've got in there, because of course this is a priority in the council plan. So I think it's going to be for us to decide where to concentrate our energy and what to put our backing to, and that will play out when we come to have those wider cross-council discussions. So I hope that helps a bit, but there's a slightly rocky landscape ahead of us, and of course that's all subject to government timing as well, isn't it? Because we know that MHCLG that's the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, continues to tell us that with confidence that the timetable will be elections to shadow councils on the 6th of May 2027 and vesting day for new councils on the 1st of April 2028. But we do know there are many other areas of the country that they're going to have to consider, and we do wonder about the capacity of central governments to deal with that timetable. So it could well be that we get more time to deliver these projects, so that the fact that we think it's a short timeline, I don't think is a reason for stopping. I think we should motor on with the projects that are important to us and see how far we can get. Hope that helps.
I think that was very helpful, thank you. Right, I've got a bit of a queue, so I'm going to work through you. So starting with Councillor Martin Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ali. And I noticed in the Bruton Knowles note, there was it says some of the parties, the developers who showed interest, take it that means, said propose exploring alternative tenures such as co-living, later living, co-housing. Is that something that will be open in the process that we could consider that might come through in tenders? Or?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's in the output spec. I'm just checking with Celeste. Yeah, so it's included in the output spec as well as something that the council would consider. And it can be really helpful because it's effectively pre-sales on the site to a developer if there's co-housing going ahead. And we know there's demand for that as well. And we've been contacted by co-housing groups on this site and on our site at the Stroud Station Quarter. Yeah.
Great. Councillor Lindsay Green.
You must have preempted what my question was be when you asked Kathy to talk about LGR, so mine's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Steve Hind. Side.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't face you, Alison, when I'm talking to you. So mine's on the meanwhile uses and the community engagement. So 7.2, we talk about the community facility will provide great opportunity for the community to continue to be engaged. I wondered, sort of two parts. One, if you can just talk a bit more about what we mean by the community facility, because that's obviously an incredibly exciting bit. And the second, I guess, is just to note that we're in a sort of a slight catch here with this element of the work, and that the more successful that meanwhile use is and the more attached and positive part of the community it is, the harder it will be for it to be a meanwhile use. And so I guess there's a question in that as we do the communications around this stage of the project, just a request maybe that we can have real clarity around meanwhile use being, short-term projects, emphasis that this is something that will be there for the community and then will be gone again within a few years as this site progresses.
Yes, I'll try not answer the question about the EOI. Was it on the community facility and what that would be? So the output spec requires a developer partner to design and submit planning application for a community facility on the site. So, but not to build it. And what we've been working with is an expression of interest then for community groups to come forward with proposals for that land, and the council is giving that land free, effectively, to a community group to do that with. So the developer takes it that key stage forward, and also, which is important as well because it needs to be part of the overall design for the site. So a lot of work has been done on that, and that EOI is ready to go out to the community when we're at the right point in the project. I mean, absolutely, with meanwhile uses, this is a difficulty in that there, we've had to move temporary uses off the site before, and it's been very difficult, and the local community has been very upset by that as well. But the site has been vacant for a long time, so that's why it's come to committee for a decision to be made over that as well, to make that very transparent. We obviously make sure in any legal arrangement that's clear, but also I think you're right, it's very important that we communicate that both to whoever's delivering that meanwhile use, but also to the local community. And we can, looking at the sort of timetable we're looking at now, we can say that it's probably only 18 months-ish from here that would be available for.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Piercy.
Thank you, Chair. I want to actually talk about number 2, actually. Just a couple of questions on that. So the first one is that SVCC originally asked for indexation of RPI and not CPI. So my question is, are they expecting us to come back with CPI rather than RPI? Have we spoken to them about that? And then secondly, a more general question is this, I think it probably is, but clarification that this is actually a significant part of their income and therefore almost a vital part of their income to maintain their activities in managing, the whole of the Stroud Canal Centre, because they do important work in managing and maintaining the canal pass. Thank you.
So the original approval from committee was for CPI, and that's what was agreed. The negotiations to transfer the site were very, very complicated and difficult. So there were 4 parties involved at the end of the day, because we had to do a land swap and we had Homes England as well. And SVCC ultimately wanted to obviously be very sure they're meeting their charitable objectives in transferring the site, etc. And basically their negotiation stance was, well, we need RPI. So at that point, in order to get this over the line and to transfer the site, to bring it forward, we agreed to that until the grant was reviewed. So the heads of terms for the transfer, etc., were talking about CPI, and that's in the legal agreements. We have contacted them. We did try to go to a board meeting to talk about this and to talk about the project in general, and unfortunately that board meeting was cancelled, and we do need to get back to board meeting and talk to SVCC. So I have let them know. I haven't had a response yet, and I'm sure they'll be disappointed because the RPI's effectively shot up over that time compared to CPI. But it's not the indexation that we use as a council. It is, as I understand it, quite a significant part of their income. So, they obviously do use it for maintenance and management of the canal. And there is that overall issue of ongoing funding through moorings, etc., that needs to be addressed off the site too.
I'm not sure whether I have a follow-up question, but it's more around the sort of the health of SVCC. So if we are reducing the funding from what their expectation or their requirement or their ask from RPI to CPI, and we're not doing that, so there's a gap. They clearly have some degree of reliance on the money. I don't know how much, but is this going to cause them a problem? And should we be having a discussion about that?
I'm going to refer that one to James Brain, Strategic Director of Place.
Yeah, so responding to your first question, there's a board meeting tomorrow, where I intend to raise this, and no doubt it will be a discussion there. So we'll get some further clarity on just the sort of just how much of a pressure that is on their finances. So we can certainly report that back to this committee. As Ali's expressed, I mean, CPI, so we're consistent with that. But yeah, unfortunately, we've just not been able to meet with them. Also, that there's been wider sort of changes at SVCC, so there is an extraordinary meeting being held tomorrow, and there'll be a new chair and various other things. So it's a real opportunity to discuss that, and just then the wider position as well as part of the future operating model that's being reinvigorated to support the wider partnership on the canal and the various other partners. So yes, and John Parker will be at that meeting tomorrow as well, so I'll make sure that he's fully briefed on it as well.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions, actually, also financial. So a question that's been raised with me for this meeting is around SPC's grant, actually, CC's grant, just in terms of why are we funding that entity? There's obviously lots of charities around the district. Is the council getting something from that grant? Where does it come from? So I know there's an awful lot of background to this, so I just wondered if you might be able to say a little bit about that. And then in terms of the additional capital ask of 206,000 for the project generally, so that is an addition. So we've got some money in the budget anyway of a couple of 100,000, I think 224 for this year, and we're asking for another 206 to go for the next few years up to 28-29. I'm just interested really in what that money will be spent on, because there isn't much detail in the paper. So if we could just have a bit more information on that, that would be great. Thank you.
So with regards to the background to SVCC's grant funding, and initially they owned the site, but any surplus income off the site is due to go to Homes England under the funding agreement. So it was with Homes, and still is with Homes England's consent, that the £50,000 was used by SVC to maintain the canal. That has subsequently changed, so it's always linked to the port and the port income, but that subsequently changed, and the council now funds that separately. It doesn't come out of the income from the port, so it's directly being funded by SDC now. So it's not, it's not related to that agreement with Homes England. And it is used for equipment and maintenance and management of the canal, which obviously has to be done. So that they use that directly towards that. In terms of what the additional funding we're asking to be spent on, essentially it's the procurement advice and taking us through the procurement process, and the legal advice to do that. There's an amount allocated for towards abstraction licence, so we need to sort out abstraction to keep a flow through of water through the site, and then project management staffing costs in that.
So that's really helpful to understand on the latter point. On the SVCC, I suppose I'm just interested in our support for that organisation, and in terms of restructuring it as we go forward. It would just be good to have some confidence around the money that that we as a council are giving to that organisation, and what our expectations are in terms of delivery with that money, so that when we're committing funding from this committee, we know what we're getting for it, basically. Because yes, I'm not sure that I could explain that to somebody else at the moment. So over to you, James Brain.
Yes, no, thank you. I completely understand and fully support those concerns as well. And as part of the discussions that we'll be having tomorrow at the extraordinary general meeting, it'll be very much to look at the roles of all the founding fathers, as it were, of which the district council is one, with the Stroud Valleys Canal Company. We need to put some interim arrangements in place to make sure that it's fit for the future, and then that wider piece in terms of its role and others' role in the sustainable operation of that canal. And absolutely, you're right to want to get clarity on that so that you can articulate that. Not least I need to be doing that as well, so I can articulate that with partners as well. So it is a key focus of the District Council and others. Yeah.
And just to add to that, what we've been discussing with SVC is to have a formal grant agreement, which they haven't had before. So that's really clearly set out what they will be delivering with that money, and then they will obviously be evidencing that back to us, as we would with any other organisation.
Great, that's really reassuring to hear. Thank you. Okay, any further questions? No. Okay, in which case I will move to the resolution. The committee Oh, it's a long one, isn't it? Sorry, get my glasses on. The committee resolves to, number 1, delegate authority to the Head of Property Services in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of Strategy and Resources Committee to A, proceed to procure a developer partner for Brimscombe Port using a competitive, flexible procedure with the final selection of the partner to be presented to committee for approval at the completion of the process. B, use the previously approved procurement documents, subject to making any minor amendments to these documents required to bring them up to date and in line with the Procurement Act 2023. C, reconvene the Brimscombe Port Project Board to include councillors and members of the community appointed to act as critical friends, as described in section 5 of this report, and subject to the updated terms of reference being agreed with group leaders. And 4, allow appropriate meanwhile uses on the site until vacant possession is required, subject to any necessary statutory consents being granted. And number 2, to continue to grant fund Stroud Valleys Canal Company for £67,000 per annum, but with indexation reverting back to CPI. The committee recommends to Council the allocation of a total capital budget of £206,000 to fund costs to progress the redevelopment of Brimscombe Port over the next 4 financial years until 2028-29. Anyone like to propose? I'm happy to. Anyone like to second? Terry. Terry, would you like to speak? No. Okay, great. So we move into debate. Any comments from anyone? No. Okay, Catherine.
I'd just like to say I'm really pleased to see this coming forward. I know it's been a huge amount of work. It was great disappointment when the previous developer pulled out. I understand the reasons for doing that, and it's positive to see this evening that there are a huge range of other developers, a good number of other developers that are interested and not frightened by the scale and challenges that this project presents. And actually, in discussion and looking at the paper, there may be some opportunities to consider different types of development, the co-housing, and I'm really pleased to see that we can consider some short-term meanwhile uses as well. Thank you.
I'll hand back to Terry.
Just want to say that I came into this meeting a little concerned around the extra funding that we were having to put into it, but my fears have been allayed by the comments of the officers, which has been really, really good. And I just want to echo Catherine's words as well, actually. It's good to get this up and running again. This is one of our, well, it is probably our premier big capital project that we're looking to do. And it's good to see it beginning to get back on track again.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, I'm also really pleased. It was great to see such a positive response to the soft market testing and all aspects of the output spec. I'm also really pleased that, as Catherine mentioned, you know, there was nothing we could have done about the developer partner pulling out, but we had the opportunity to go again, and that we've incorporated some learnings from last time. Grateful to officers for allowing us to have an enhanced community representation on the board. I think that will be really positive to have community voice there, and also to explore meanwhile use activities on the site. So yeah, feel very positive about all of that. So thank you very much to Ali and your team, and we will go straight to the vote. Please raise your hands if you're in favour. Thank you, and if you are against, and if you'd like to abstain. Okay, so 1 abstention and otherwise in favour, so that passes. Thank you very much. So we'll move on then to item 9, which is member officer reports, and these are just to note, but if you have questions for the report author, then we can certainly take them. So starting with performance management. So we had an update in the document pack. Are there any questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Martin Piercy.
Just a quick one on page 63. On LE1A, it says talks about a retail survey has been completed and once reviewed will be informed action. It hasn't got it's got a due date of 31st of March 2029, but I'm assuming that the survey information will come back a lot sooner than that to inform the how we're going to progress with this.
You went so quickly there, I didn't have a chance to find it in the papers. Sorry. What was the reference again?
It's on page 63, right at the top. So it's about the targeted support for rural communities.
Oh, I see, right.
And there's an update there which says that the survey has been completed and reviewed, but there's no sort of date to when and will inform action but it's
Got
sort of
you, got
not
you.
really
I'm going to
data-
hand over to James Brain again, if that's all right.
I may have to ask you one more time, what page number was that on? I was desperately trying to find the page, sorry.
It's 63 on mine. Maybe it's different to everybody else's.
No, I've got it. I've got it. Oh. Yeah, no, I've got it. Yeah. Yes. This.
That's what's known as teamwork.
Back in the room. Sorry about that. Yeah, in fact, this was one of those other papers that was reported to the Regeneration Investment Board probably about 2 or 3 meetings back, and it was our tourism officer who had gone and surveyed all of the, or visited all of the towns. Very happy to share a copy of that. We work closely with the Chamber of Commerce on that, who provided us some good intel on Stroud. Part of that looked at vacancies, but also the condition of the shops and the shop fronts in particular, and that's helping to inform the spend of the Market Town and Vitality Fund as well. So very happy to reshare that with the group, with the committee.
Handing over to Cathy O'Leary.
Yeah, I think possibly what was foxing you is the target date. The target date is simply the end date of the council plan. It's not. The work is underway, so I think we probably could bring that forward as well. So that's probably the bit that's foxing people a little bit, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Question from me. So it's really positive to see that the performance monitoring meeting happened. We've got great questions and comments from Councillor Caton Hughes and Councillor Brown, and officer responses. So that's very helpful, but we have 6 overdue items. Having looked at them, I don't have major concerns about any of them, but there isn't narrative next to them. So I just wonder, with performance monitoring reports, if we can try and ensure that where something is a red item, that we do have some narrative next to it, so that members and people who are watching this meeting have got something to go on. That would be really helpful. So any more questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Stephen Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. On page 69, it mentions that 2 councils chose not to take up the charter. I just wonder whether, and forget me, but is there any way that with them not taking up the charter, their residents aren't as well informed, or is there anything negative that for their residents as they haven't taken up the charter?
Thanks, Steve.
Could anybody remind me?
To respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Robinson, for the question. I think it's a matter for the individual parish councils. I think it's very disappointing for us that they haven't chosen to sign up to the charter, because, as you're aware, it's a 2-way agreement. It's an agreement with what we'll do to support town and parish councils, and in return what they will do to make sure that we're on track with everything that we should be for them. So it's very difficult to understand why that is. All I'm going to say is that we are currently revisiting the charter, and we're allying that to our work on local government reorganisation, and it may well be that following the last town and parish council forum that we had a week or 2 ago, which was very well attended, that people respond slightly more positively to that engagement. So it may well be that we managed to get better engagement. But yes, it's a disappointment to us, but we can't do much more than we are doing, I don't think.
Could I just ask through the chair, I mean, was there any follow-up for them to sort of, I know officers have got enough to do, but I just wonder whether there was any follow-up to find out, why they didn't, and will.
Thank you. On page 68, WF1A.1, around the communication strategy, which is red, which had a due date of 30th September of this year, and notice that work is ongoing. Now, we all know that communications is vital really for the council. This is why I'm a little bit disappointed. And also, when is the date likely to? When is the strategy likely to be delivered? Is it still imminent? Am I unduly worried, or is it still 3 months, 6 months out? So clarity on that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Piercy. We've had a peer challenge for our comms team in which many members have been involved, and I think you'll find that the due date is just after the new year, so it's only been delayed for that. So at the moment there's a communication strategy in draft, but we're waiting on the results of the corporate peer challenge to shape it before it comes back to this committee. Now we're hoping that that's going to be in time to bring it back to the next Strategy and Resources Committee, but we do need that peer review challenge feedback, I think, to be able to completely put it to bed before it comes back to members. And then I think what we'll probably do is make sure that our administration leadership team have sight of it after that, and then our group leaders, and then we'll be bringing it back to committee more formally. So it's got a few hoops to jump through yet, but I have seen a draft of it, and I know that it's waiting now. So we're slightly disappointed we haven't had the feedback yet from the peer challenge, but that's the reason why. But it is due to come back in the new year.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I entirely understand the reason, but I guess my point is, should it be in the report? Otherwise, it says this work is ongoing, so it would have been helpful to have a little bit more content within the performance monitoring report to be able to articulate that, really. Thank you.
So point taken, so we just need to include a little bit more information in the narrative. I'll take that on board, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on then to the next report, Regeneration Investment Board. Probably just worth noting that we actually had the next meeting today. One of the items that came up, you'll see in this report that Albury at the time remained a contender for a potential small modular reactor. But we've heard, as members may well have seen over the last 24 hours, that in fact the government has chosen to go with the other possible site, which was Anglesey in Wales. But we understand that Great British Energy Nuclear still plan to develop Albury with a view to potentially being a small modular reactor site in the future, which is good news. So a bit disappointing that that investment didn't come to our area, but good to know that there's still commitment to the site for that sort of thing. So any comments on this or questions on this report? Yes, Steve Robinson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the Hill Paul building, on the Hill Paul site, the lower site where the old coal yard was and whatever, I remember in the chamber, it must be at least 3 years ago, when we purchased that from Newland Homes. Is there any way that the whole site, it just seems a shame that it's, that lower piece, is there any way that the whole site, and I realise there's still ongoing regarding the car parking and with British Rail and whatever, is there any way that we can develop part of the site, or is the whole thing in one build out?
Ali, are you able to comment on that?
Well, I suppose we could. I think our preference is not to do that, is to bring the whole site forward together. It obviously gives you more land to play with, I suppose, and to allocate. You might want, for example, to put more open space on one part of it than another and move things around a bit. So we prefer it to come forward. Also, trying to bring forward two sites separately. I don't think we'd be able to bring forward the Cheapside site if we just focused on the coal yard.
The build out cost 3 years ago, what that would have been and what it will be eventually when, but I listen to what you say, Alice. Thank you.
There are no further questions. We'll move on to the final report, which is a canal update. Any questions on this one? No? Great. Okay, thank you very much. So we move then to item 10, which is our work programme. So our next meeting is on the 15th of January when we've got the risk management framework, communications strategy, which will be really interesting. We've got, it will be a big meeting because we've got the community infrastructure levy spending allocations where we decide how we're going to allocate that funding. That's always really interesting. And I know there are some really great projects coming through for our attention. Fair pay and senior pay policy statement, and then our budget monitoring report for the second quarter. So quite a full agenda in January, so much so we've had to split it into 2 meetings, and we've got another one on the 29th of January, which will include things like looking at leisure capital options, appraisal, refreshing the gym in Dursley, council tax support scheme, capital strategy, the HRA budget, general budget, and lots of our usual reports. So quite a lot going on in January, but would anybody like to suggest any items that aren't ready on the agenda for those or future meetings? No? Okay, well, do come back to us anytime. We're always open for suggestions for agenda items at any time, so do take advantage of that. No. But great, well, thank you everyone for your time, and I will see you, I'm sure before, but our next meeting on the 15th of January. Thanks very much. Safe journey home. Do pick up your post.